Hey everyone, bit of a different video today. So in my last video, I talked about how you can use Google AI Studio to turn videos into SOPs or step-by-step guides. And that's just something I do myself with my own YouTube videos, just because I make educational videos on AI automations. And I often want to turn them into a written format for people who prefer reading as opposed to following on a video or just having both side by side. And I got a couple of messages from that video for people asking for the script and all that sort of stuff. The script itself is, I would say, very raw. It's just a Python script and not very user-friendly. So it sort of got me thinking, how would I productize it? And the thing that I really do enjoy doing is going through that process of productizing, coming up with new products. So today I thought I would just record that process just to show you how I usually go about it. This video will probably just go through how I sort of map out the user flows, how I sort of scope the problem, and then maybe even early wireframes. And then potentially in a later video, I'll show you like progress updates where I start building and that sort of stuff. I'll see where this video goes, but if you have any thoughts or ideas, just leave a comment below. So I sort of started by writing down some very rough notes in Apple Notes. And then I had a couple of different ideas for what I should call it. For now, I'm just going to write VidYap. I don't like it that much, but I think it's okay as an initial starting points, just so I have a name on the file. And then as I go, I usually will come up with better names and I might change it as we go. So with any sort of product design process, generally you want to start with the problem. So what I'll do here is just create a problem, and some people call this like the problem statement or something like that. I usually like to just frame it around the customer problem. And in this case, let's just start with what I do, right? So I want to turn educational video content into step-by-step guides. Right. So this is just specifically my use case, but you can quite easily sort of brainstorm around this to see what some adjacent problems might be. So software businesses often need to create product and onboarding documentation. This is currently highly manual and requires taking lots of screenshots and writing step-by-step instructions. So this is the pain point I personally felt just in my professional roles. So I work in product, so a lot of the time when we're releasing new features and all that sort of stuff, I do have to work with the team to update all of the documentation, so it's quite time consuming. Another one is just straight up like SOPs within businesses can be time consuming to create and update. So this is a bit of a general problem statement, but specific examples just from people that reached out to me, like they need to train their VAs, so virtual assistants, and to do that, they need to come up with these SOPs. Currently, they just do a Loom or they sort of write it out, and it's not the most efficient. But at the same time, my concern around that problem is I don't know how big of a problem it is. And I did some research in this space, right? There are a couple of startups tackling this. So there's ScribeHow, Tango.us, and then I think it's Guy. And then I know Loom also came out with their AI product as well. So you can record a screen recording and then to let like Loom transcribe it and turn it into an SOP. So the Loom thing is probably the most similar to what I've been doing, but they don't sort of insert images and all that sort of stuff. Their sort of offering is really just they will transcribe it and then have an easy way for you to sort of put that transcription into ChatGPT and return an SOP. That's sort of in a nutshell what their feature is. Scribe is more designed for that sort of software and onboarding use case I mentioned before, but it's not really video focused. So it's like a Chrome extension. As you click around, it'll just effectively, it will take a screenshot every time you click, and then you end up with a step-by-step guide, something that looks like this, right? So you click something, so you click new, and it'll take a screenshot and it'll label it, which is like pretty good. It's already like quite a big improvement over this second problem, but there's no video component to it, right? And then this one, Tango, I think is very similar to Scribe. To be honest, I haven't used Tango before. I have used Scribe before. And then Guide, I've watched a lot of their videos. It seems like they work similarly to Scribe. It's just that their output is a pseudo video. They call it a video, but it's not really video. It's very closer to a slideshow. So yeah, all these three tools are really around like this creating onboarding and training materials. And they just basically take a screenshot of your screen every time you click or do some sort of interaction. So one of the sort of limitations of this is you are stuck in recording software. So you can't record, like, as an example, a cooking video and turn it into a step-by-step guide. Cool. So these are the sort of different problems that I've roughly thought about. But in order to move ahead, you want your problem to be quite focused, because otherwise you're solving too many problems. So your product is just going to be all over the place. It's going to be very bloated. You're not going to serve any specific customer or persona very well, which is generally what you don't want to do. So in terms of these different problems, I generally want to like choose one. And in this case, what I might do is this one, right? So this one I think is a problem. I do think that the existing solutions are pretty good, but I do think just recording a video straight up and then putting it into AI to get the step-by-step guides and then having the screenshots pulled in from your videos, all that is an improvement, but there are also downsides, right? Like the benefit of this is because you're tracking each click, it's very easy to edit. Whereas like if you're using video to step-by-step guides for this sort of use case, you're assuming that your video is already correct. So whether you've edited it or not, you've recorded it correctly. And so once you've done that, then it's obviously easy to sort of turn it into a text step-by-step guide. The other sort of shortcoming with the video to text approach that I've been doing is for this specific use case is if you're talking about business users and like people who are making these guides, a lot of the time, just from talking to different people, they're not necessarily the most comfortable with recording video content. These are not creators by profession or anything like that. So if you look through online reviews and stuff, sometimes people talk about not really comfortable recording their voice and that sort of stuff. So having the video to text approach, you need people to record their voice, and sometimes people are less comfortable with that. Whereas with the scribe and guide approach, you don't really need that. I think this last one is still like quite a big one, but it has similar shortcomings to this second one. But let's see how we go. I think if we tackle this first one well, we can always sort of slowly expand into other ones, right? And this customer problem can change like as you learn more, as you iterate, but it's important to sort of pick one initially so you can either prove or disprove it, right? Cool. So usually after this, you would go into a solution ideation stage where you sort of do what's called like a double diamond process, where you diverge and converge, that sort of stuff. So let me just pull it up. So divergence is like where you just throw out as many ideas as you can and you converge, you try to narrow down within the solution set. In this case, I've sort of done it a bit backwards because I was solving my own problem here. I already sort of narrowed down on a solution. So what I'm going to do now is sort of skip more into the user mapping. And usually for that, I use VidYap. So I'm just going to jump over to VidYap. And don't know why it's my last profile. I might be in the wrong account or something. Anyways, so what I'd usually do is I can do this. So I might say, so what am I doing? So I'm mapping out the user journey in what's called a user journey map. So you start off with the key, I always forget the terminology. It's basically this. So you start off with the key activities and then the steps that you will need to take and then the specific details in your software that you need. So I usually start with this because it's a good way to map out the end-to-end journey. And then after this, I sort of start creating like lo-fi wireframes. And usually if you had a full product and design team, you would then go into like high fidelity wireframes. But because I'm just working on this myself, I sometimes will make the wireframe. Sometimes I would just stop after this and then I would just start coding and then I would just iterate in the code as I'm coding, just because the benefit of having all the functions, all the skill sets in one person is you can sort of have that iteration be really fast. Whereas if you have a team, you have the benefits of like lots of different viewpoints and deeper expertise in each function, but it means that because you need handover points and collaboration points, you generally will have a bit more work done at each stage, rather than just if you're the dev as well as the designer as well as like the product person here, you can just iterate yourself while you're coding because you don't need that communication loop basically. Anyways, so high level, let's say creator has made a educational video. This is not technically the activities yet. I just try to like map out in my own head what's happening first, and then I turn it into more of a user story map. So create made an educational video needs a step-by-step guide. So usually this is for like SEO purposes, so for their blog, or just as a, let's say, lead magnet resource, something like that. So currently what they would do is write up a step-by-step. Actually, so that was like be pre-tragedy. So what they would currently do is get the transcript of a YouTube video, go to ChatGPT, get a step-by-step guide, manually insert screenshots, then publish. So realistically, there should be several post notes, but the reason I've done it this way is because I don't actually think this should be the flow, because I think what I would be doing is go sort of upload video to Google AI Studio, get step-by-step guide, and then insert images, and then edit, and then publish. Right. So this is sort of broadly, I think, the flow that we want to replicate. I think where we can add additional value is around this upload step, because right now it's not the smoothest. And then also in terms of the editing and the output steps, you can make the editing a lot more streamlined versus what it is now. So right now you get the step-by-step guide out of Google AI Studio, and you have to go through a video, go through different timestamps and take sort of images, that sort of stuff, and then edit them. So you can streamline that a lot. And then also just the output, right? So one is the quality of the output, which is the text, which like technically you could tune with like different prompts and all that sort of stuff. But then also in terms of having some level of interactivity, right? Like, can you somehow make the step-by-step guide interact with the video? So if there's timestamps in the step-by-step guide, can you click on them so that it takes you to specific parts of the video? Cool. So we've sort of done activities and steps in a mix. Like, I'm not super strict about this, especially with my own projects, just because I generally will come back and update this as I go, which is not best practice by any means, but when you're building yourself, you have that level of freedom. So yes. So from here, what I will do is, let's see. This is not actually a step, that's just a motivation. Cool. I think the other things to think about here is, so we said the problem statement was around creating step-by-step guides. I think the motivation drives a lot of this behavior. So is this for SEO and it's being published to your blog? Or is this like to be added to a course or community, or is this like a resource? I think there are obviously some similar things where in all three of those, you want the output quality to be really good. But if you're doing it for SEO purposes, the locations you're publishing it to will be quite different. So if you're building it for SEO purposes, you probably want integrations into like WordPress, Webflow, that sort of stuff. Whereas if you're building it more as like, let's say, a lead magnet or a way to drive additional traffic to your YouTube video, you probably want to repurpose the video into different social posts. So let's say into a tweet, into a LinkedIn post, into a newsletter. And then if you're doing it for your like own community and stuff, then I feel like you don't actually need too much of a publishing integration set, but potentially what you want is more around the analytics. So something like Loom, right, where you create a video and then you share it, you do get a lot of deep analytics there. It's potentially something like that, or yeah. And then the other thing, before I forget, is on the lead magnet side, potentially you want a way to be able to collect emails in order for people to access the guides, right? There's lots of different directions we can take this in, and like there's not necessarily a right answer. It sort of comes back again to the customer problem that you're solving. And I think what we need to do is, we've said this, but we really need to go even that step further, right? Like, what is the motivation for these step-by-step guides? Is it, let's say, SEO? Is it lead magnet? Is it for social? Right? Is it like to drive more traffic to YouTube video? I think those are the main ones. And like, you don't have to necessarily pick one, but you definitely need to understand for your target customer what the relative priorities of these are. Like you need to stack rank this. What is number one? What is number two? And what is number three? And this might vary between different people, but in that case, you need to sort of pick the persona that you're serving so that you can stack rank these, because this will have an impact on the products that you design and build, right? And exactly in the way I mentioned earlier, like if your SEO is number one, then you know they will be publishing to a blog or CMS of some kind. So you probably want to build a lot of CMS integrations. If it's a lead magnet, then the analytics and maybe capturing emails might be a higher priority. And if it's driving more traffic to a YouTube video, then it's probably more like social content repurposing. Now, this video is actually getting a lot longer than I wanted it to be when I started this video. So what I might do actually is I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to leave this as a question to you, right? If the problem statement that I sort of talked about here resonates with you, which of these like problems or motivations is the highest, is the most important for you, right? If you were the target customer for this, which is the highest priority? And if it's something else that I've completely missed, feel free to comment that below as well. And in the next video, I can obviously add that to the list. And depending on how everyone responds, we can take this product in that direction. So please please stack rank these if you think this product will be valuable for you. So stack rank these or something that I missed. Cool. So before this video gets any longer and I lose everyone, I'm just gonna wrap this up. This will be part one, and there will be a part two once some people have commented and all that sort of stuff. I will obviously still be thinking about this, but I will try to hold myself back from progressing too far on this without recording myself. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, leave a comment, and super excited to see what everyone thinks of how these should be prioritized.